Ohayo gozaimasu. What? How do you say that? Ohayo gozaimasu. Yes, that's how you say hello or welcome in Japanese. And I'm a big fan of Japanese culture, and I like the track. So, excuse me, Japanese, if I butchered your language, but I really love you guys. Sorry. Okay, anyway, let's get into the setup for Japan. And right off the bat, you saw, it's quite a tough lap to nail around here. Um, you have to carry a lot of momentum because there's a lot of high speed corners. You don't really lose that much time in high speed corners compared to slow speed corners because there's more braking and acceleration involved in slow corners. High speed corners, such as like Japan, the S sections, it's so sneaky. You have to get it a lot of momentum, and it all starts from turn one itself. If you carry a poor momentum coming out of turn one, your entire S section, your entire sector one, you're gonna lose about 3-4 tenths easily. And you can be conservative, not touching the curbs at all. You'll lose probably about 2 tenths, but 2-3 tenths, but you'll be much safer in a race condition, especially if you're following someone in dirty air. I recommend not going on the curbs if you're following someone because it's so easy to lose your car, and especially with this year's game and handling where it's a bit meh on the traction and unpredictable. You can't really feel it on the wheel. It's just visual. If it goes, it goes. You don't feel it at all. So always be careful when you're falling in dirty, especially through the SS. Sector 2 and Sector 3 is where the magic happens. Long straight after the darkness and the hairpin, it's a long straight down to spoon, and coming out of spoon, it's a long straight till 130R till the last corner. So these are the places where you want to be making sure you are close enough to someone. But I have had my league race just 2 days ago, and I can say confidently, 2 days ago, it's about a day and a half ago, and depends on timing. 2.5 to 3 tenths easily can be lost in the first sector if you're using about maybe 2 or 3 wings lower. Low downforce doesn't mean you're going to be good in the race. Generally, in this game you want to be using low downforce, but what I found is during the league race I was using 26-21 wings, and ERS regen was super good, about 7 to 8% a lap, more than expected. So whereas the world record setup, which had a 25-18 wings, it regenerated about the same amount of ERS, but the race pace on that high downforce was so much better. I was able to keep up in the first sector until I spun in one of the laps, of course, traditions. But race pace wise, it was much better in the practice race as well. So here you go. Enough of waffling. Now let's get into the setup straight away. I'll show you what is the world record setup that's been used and what I modified from the world record setup, and how I used it. So world record setup, let's load back Mr. Ron Haas setup here. World record setup, as I said, 25-18 wings, good baseline. If you want to use this, go ahead, just increase the rear wing to make sure the rear is a bit more stable, or you can reduce the front wing to make sure the car is balanced. There's not too much front down arrow compared to rear, which is going to cause oversteer. Okay, either way you can adjust it. Transmission always standard 55 or 60, whichever you prefer. 60 generates a bit more understeer on exit. 55 rotates the car a lot more on acceleration. All right, so if you feel like on under acceleration your car is not turning enough, you can try going lower, but don't go lower than 55. It generates a little bit more wheel spin in that case. Sometimes it generates it does the opposite of what you want. Stick at 55 or 60. On the rear, I'd say 50 is okay. 51 might be useful in the race session if you want a bit more compliant rear, but the problem here in Japan is your front tires that are going to wear out. So naturally throughout the race the car is going to get more and more understeery. You do not want the rears to be too stiff. Keep it at 50, you should be okay. Suspension geometry is the same as always, right, left. Minimum camber, minimum toe is the way to go around on this game. Suspension, which is a bit weird, as you can see in the world record setup, one on the front suspension, so that gives you a lot of front end grip. Soft suspension presses the car more onto the ground, that means more front end grip, but it's also more unstable as you go through the corners. If you can handle it, then it's good for you. Rear suspension is kind of the opposite from the front. The more rear suspension you add, the more the rear is going to move around, and it's going to cause more instability and worse traction. All right, Front anti-roll bar is at 3. That's good enough, you know, so that in the mid corner the car is not sliding around too much. If you go low on your anti-roll bar, you'll generally feel like the car is unstable in high speed. If you increase it, it's going to be a bit more understeer in high speed. So depending on what you need, you can increase it. If you feel the car is too, you know, turns in too much in the mid corner phase, especially going through the S's and suddenly just snaps mid corner, you can try increasing the front anti-roll bar, or you can try increasing the front suspension. Either one. I'll say go for anti-roll bar first, right? Because it's mid corner. If it's on the entry where it's too stiff, you reduce the front suspension. Rear anti-roll bar, it's at 1. Why? Because again, it gives a lot of stability in mid corner. Front ride height is at 5. Good enough to take all the curbs around here. It doesn't bottom out. If you go lower, it will definitely bottom out a lot more aggressively on the curbs. 6 is much safer. It generates a bit more understeer though. So if you are using 6 ride height, you want to find a bit more front end grip. It's either, you know, you increase your front wing or reduce your rear wing, one way or the other. Or if you find this world record setup a bit too snappy, you know, moves around a lot of oversteer, try 6 front ride height straight away, and you will notice that it generates a bit more understeer because front of the car is lifted a bit. So that might help you actually. 150 brake bias, very important for the last braking zone, turn 16, the chicane, the Casio chicane. Use 51 because, you know, you have to trail brake into the corner. It will kick out the rear, and 51 or 52, depending on how bad is your setup, you may need to use 51 or 52 brake bias just for that corner, and then 51 or 50 everywhere else. Tire pressures, world record setup as usual, time trial, it's a bit wacko. Now for the race, always start with minimum front pressures and minimum rear pressures in Japan. You want to increase maybe 1 or 2 clicks on the rear to give a bit more rear stability in the high speed corners like the S's. Everywhere else, you know, you can actually run with minimum pressure, it's going to be good. But I'll say at least 2 clicks, that will give you a bit of rear stability even in high speed or in acceleration. Higher than that, I wouldn't recommend if you have tire temperature issues, but in my league race, when I tested this on heavy fuel on the mediums at the start, I started on the mediums. This was perfect actually. The tires were only about 96, 97 at most. And then when I wanted the hards were like super consistent as well. So this is a good pressure range to use. You can increase the front pressures by 1 click if you want to. This will help with your front tire wear as well, which is going to be more important around here. Now, onto the setup that I just used just now and the one from my league race as well. Let's have a look real quick. So 26, 21. Now it might seem that it's a lot more downforce, but in actual race condition such as you know, Grand Prix or online mode, this gives you so much more rear grip and you can power out of the corner much faster. The amount of time that you gain on acceleration is more so about the time that you gain from having a low downforce setup like just now. But important thing in a race is your tires are going to wear out, not like time trial. As the tires wear out, you're going to get less and less grip from the tires. Having more aerodynamic grip from the extra wings is going to help you maintain that lap time consistently. Otherwise, if you run lower downforce, you're going to lose more and more lap time as your tires start to wear. Alright, generally high downforce also helps with reducing your tire wear. It's important to note that I used 25 for my qualifying lap. That was just nice. And 26 at the race start on the mediums. In hindsight, I should have used 25 because after a few laps the thing became a little too unstable. So start on 25 if you're using the medium tires to start your race. You can use 26 instead if you're starting on the hard tires, and then once you go into the pits, drop by 1 click for the mediums. Or if you're going mediums to hards, either way you can also reduce by 1 click. Always reduce it by 1 click from where you started, and that should be good amount. And then, you know, pitted for the end for fastest lap attempt, I dropped it to 23, just nice as well. So fastest lap attempt, got the fastest lap, done deal. Transmission, I kept it at 50 all the way. In the race I went up to 60 because, you know, as the tires start to wear out, it, you know, gives you less grip, and having a bit more on throttle reduces the chance of the rear stepping out under heavy acceleration, especially coming out of that last chicane. That's where I find traction is the most difficult. You have to keep your steering straight, can't even turn a bit. You can't really be taking a tight line like last year. You want to be taking a straighter line so that you get a better exit, and then once your car is straight, just let it go to the finish line and you'll be fine. Off throttle 50, 51, either way just fine. 51 will be a bit more stable in high speed if you need that in the race. Suspension geometry, no changes. Suspension, here's where the magic happens once again. Now I reduced, if you notice, the suspension from the world record setup was 1-2, right? Even one click on the rear suspension has a bit of a big difference in the car handling. So I reduced it because I want the rear to not move around too much. Everything else I kept the same except for the ride height. I went lower on the rear ride height because I already have more downforce on the car, 26, 21, more grip. And I felt like that was enough, and I tried to go lower just to see if the car would bottom out or not, and it did not. So, and it also felt good under acceleration. You can also keep it at 6 if you're not confident enough, or if you have high speed understeer. Now, when you have 5.5, let's just assume this is the 5.5 I'm using. If you have high speed understeer, you increase the rear ride height. This is going to give you a bit of rake in the car. When you add a bit of rake, it's going to help you in cornering. So that's a good way to look at it. And then conversely, if you go the other way around, if you increase the front ride height, it's going to lift the front a bit more. That's going to make your front a bit more understeery if you need it. All right, if your car is too oversteery, you can use this to negate that oversteer. So use this wisely to make your setup. 5.5, 5.6, 6.6, all works. Don't go any higher than 7 on the rear, otherwise you start to lose a lot of time on the straights. Brakes 151. I actually used 51 throughout the entire race, and for the last corner I used 52, but that came at the cost of slightly higher tire wear on the front, but nothing that I can manage, so small issue. It's naturally going to cost more front tire wear. 50, 51, just good. Tire pressures, minimum on the front, 2 clicks on the rear, just nice. Any more than that, I think it just starts to affect your tire performance as well. You want it lower so that it gives you more grip, but you want it higher so that you get less tire wear. Medium to hards, hard to mediums is an easy one stop with this amount of downforce, so just be careful. 27 laps, you pit around lap 11 or 12 for medium to hards, or if you're doing hard to mediums, you pit around lap 16 or 17 and you can go till the end on the mediums. Soft tires, avoid it for the race because they are horrible. Okay, one lap on qualifying alone, it gives you about 7-8% tire wear. You can imagine it wouldn't even last like 6-7 laps properly in a race. There you go, recap of the setup. 26, 21, one click lower for qualifying, and then whatever you use for qualifying, if you feel that's okay, you can use that for the start of the race. In the pit stop, if you feel the car starts to get wobbly towards the end of the first stint, reduce the front wing. Transmission, keep it the same. You can use the on throttle to reduce the oversteer that they're getting, or if as the race goes on you need the car to be more stable, naturally the car is going to get lighter and more agile. If you feel the car is too agile, you need to make sure the rear is not stepping out too much. Increase the front the on throttle by 5%. That's enough. Geometry, you're not going to be able to change this, keep it the same. Suspension, not going to be able to change this in park permit, keep it the same. Brake bias, use it wisely. 50 for everywhere else, 51 on the last chicane. Tires, this pretty much perfect even for qualifying. So yeah, if it rains, just throw on some more downforce and you'll be fine. Even 10 wings, 10 click of wings will be very good to use around here, but maybe too much. Maybe 5 clicks is just nice. You can always test it out. I didn't experience rain in the race, only in the practice session, but yeah, nothing more to share about, and hope you have a good time using this setup. If you liked it, hit like or whatever, subscribe, and then also I have other setups as well for you to take a look at and learn about other tracks. So wherever it is, you can always look out for it or in the description, and hope you have fun. So see you in the next one, which will be, I don't know, what's the next track in esports? Probably Japan, I don't know. Let's see if what's up to Japan, I don't know as well. I'm gonna end it here because it's about time to start the next match in World Cup and we have to watch it. Bye bye.